Many people celebrate anniversaries, and obviously they're posted on social media and Facebook to say, hey, look, I've been married for such and such time, or I've been at my job for this long. Well, there was another anniversary last week, and this one was a big deal. Robert Senseney, cancer-free. Not that other anniversaries aren't a big deal, but when you're talking about something that affects your health, everybody is going to applaud. And I reached out to Coach Senseney and said, hey, can I talk to you about it? Coach Senseney, forever the gentleman to me, said, sure. So the first question I asked him is, so is there any cancer left? Are you in remission, or are you cancer-free?
So I drove myself to the hospital, which was the hardest thing I've ever done. They did some scans, and they're like, hey, you got a kidney stone, no big deal. But we found this, on your kidney. We need to do another scan. And they did another scan, and they came back and said, we think it's, carcinoma. So from the get-go, the emergency room doctor was like, listen, we're going to cut this thing out and you're going to be fine. And that's how it kind of started. I went to Duke and got the surgery done in October 31st, of all things. And they declared me cancer-free. The first time they did a biopsy of everything, they told me it was stage 1, which is, the one you want to get. They said it was non-aggressive. They said, hey, look, we took tissue from around your kidney. We didn't see anything else. And I did my first scan in February, and I was clear at that point. So I got to continue to do scans for a couple of years, but as of right now, they declared me cancer-free.
When you have a health issue such as cancer come about, it really can affect your emotions. I asked Robert Senseney to talk about his emotions after the kidney cancer diagnosis.
It was a lot of emotions to work through, because my doctors were very calm. They were very, hey, listen, we're going to cut this out, and you're going to live the rest of your life. The oncologist here in South Boston, he's like, listen, you're going to cut this out, and you can live the rest of your life. I mean, he said it very matter of fact. I was trying to process, like, everyone's very matter of fact, but it's the C word, it's cancer, and just trying to guide myself through that. So, it definitely, it's definitely a dark cloud, but everybody seemed calm about it. So a couple of months, even a month before my surgery, I was like, this is something I'm going to do, and it's going to be over with.
I asked Robert Senseney, did he feel like there was a dark cloud that was over him? I mean, not everybody gets cancer, but unfortunately more people than we would like to admit do get cancer. But I asked him, did you feel like there was a dark cloud hanging over you with the cancer diagnosis?
I was off from football. I was off from school. I mean, that was probably the first time in 29 years that I had missed more than 2 days in a row. The cloud then became, in all honesty, how useful am I? The football team, we were struggling that year, but those guys continued without me, and I had to come to peace with that, and if there's something that I guess it kind of changed in my mind was like, hey, we're all replaceable and everyone's going to move on. So kind of get over yourself and focus on your healing. So there was that kind of mental change and getting out from under that dark cloud of originally like, hey man, nobody needs me. And, going from I've been a head coach since 2002 to nobody needs me. It was a weird thing.
Lots of times when people have a physical ailment that comes along, it draws them closer to a deity. I asked Coach Senseney, did the cancer diagnosis make you feel more mortal, or did it draw you closer to God?
Yeah, most definitely. I ended up taking about 12 weeks off. The school system was great to me. So I started preparing for the surgery. When you're doing that and you're by yourself a lot, you really start reflecting on your relationships within your family. Like, hey, have I been a good husband? Have I been a good father? Have I been a good coach? Have I been a good head coach? And then you start thinking about your relationship with God, most definitely. And I thought about that a lot. Could I be doing better in some things? And there was definitely passage in the Bible that I kind of stuck to any day that I was maybe a little down, as because I was really training hard. You would have thought I was in a Rocky movie. I'm out there training. I'm trying to get my core stronger. I'm lifting. I got 8 weeks of training before I got into, surgery. And there was just a passage that I kept going back to, Isaiah chapter 6, whom shall I send and who will go for us? I said, here am I, send me.
When Coach Senseney was diagnosed, Halifax was not enjoying a state contender type of year. I asked Robert Senseney, if you were a strong state contender, would anything have been different in terms of stepping away from coaching or anything such as that?
I would tell you this. I was definitely in bad health at Gretna. There was definitely some situations where, I went to the doctor and they're like, hey, man, when's the last time you had a drink of water? I will tell you this. In 2004, we won our second state championship. We were 3 years in the playoffs, 3 years plus the first round. I mean, that's a lot of football games. And I remember sitting in a locker room at Liberty, and I knew that was the end of the Vic Hall era and the Horace Hubbard era and all that. But there was definitely wow, I am tired. I kind of look back at those days going, man, the grind was incredible. I grind the same way, but to answer your question, yeah, maybe in those years, like even at Fleming, when you're winning and you're winning at Gretna and you're winning down in North Carolina and you're going deep in the playoffs. Yeah, sometimes some things get ignored. That won't be my case any longer. I just too much to live for than grind myself into the ground for a playoff game versus, making sure I'm there for my kids.
When you're coaching in season, eating well is not necessarily always going to happen. Some coaches are really diligent about eating well, dieting, working out, but sometimes the eating well can be, I'm going to eat breakfast maybe, at lunch, maybe I'll get something on the go, dinner, possibly 9 or 10 o'clock. What all these meals consist of probably would not make a nutritionist smile. I asked Robert Senseney, with that being said, are you more cognizant of what goes into your body?
I tell you what it did, because, I go to the doctor, and I finally gotten that point in my life where I'm like, hey, I'm going to do my annual checkup. Whereas, in my 20s and my 30s and even in my 40s, I just kind of laughed at that. Like, I'm not doing that. And what I realized is the toll that football takes on you. And when you start, the doctors start asking you questions like, hey, you got this kidney cancer. Here are the symptoms. And I didn't have any of them except, back pain. They kept saying, did you have back pain? And I said, hey, let me tell you about Friday. On a given Friday, I'm getting at school at 7 in the morning and I'm getting home at, 3 a.m. So, yeah, I got back pain, buddy. And the doctor said, he looked at me and says, hey, man, coaching's a tough lifestyle. And, you gotta realize that. And maybe you need to look at how you're doing some stuff. So if I really took a look at some things, it was like, well, hey, can I work smarter? Can I figure this out, that we're just not so grueling and punishing on ourselves? Bob, I was raised in that time and era of, hey, you came in on Saturday, you worked all day Saturday, and you came in on Sunday, and you worked all day on Sunday to get ready for Monday. But it made me kind of look at that part of my life as like, do I have to grind that hard? And that's where I've really taken a look. My health, working out and watching what I eat, absolutely yes, but really focusing on, hey, can I do this job better, that it doesn't run me down?
Robert Senseney wasn't traveling to the hospital with the expectations of hearing the word, hey, you have kidney cancer, probably thinking it was just some kidney stones and discomfort, as the coach has said. But with that being said, I asked Coach Senseney, can you be the model for early detection? Hey, if you don't feel well, go get yourself checked out. Or are you more grateful that the doctors have cured your cancer at this time?
Go get checked out if you're not feeling well. Once again, I had that kidney stone. I am in a sweat. I am cold to the touch. I am in massive pain. I am trying to talk myself into gritting my teeth and getting through it. It just got to a point, I don't know what it was. Maybe it's divine intervention, but something just clicked in my head like, I got to go. I got to go. And one of my doctors, Dr. Pereira, he said it, that kidney stone saved your life. And this is me saying I could have gutted it out. And when I drove to the hospital, I stopped 3 times from the pain because I was like, if I keep driving, I'm going to wreck. I'm an old school football guy. I'm gutted out. Gratitude is definitely up there, but you got to go get yourself checked out, and you got to take care of yourself because it's selfish if you don't, because you gotta be there for your kids and your wife and your family.
Big thanks to Robert Senseney. I interviewed him last week. Sorry for the delay of getting it up there, but I'll tell you what, if Coach Senseney's message can resonate on one more person, because it certainly has resonated on me, go get yourself checked out. If you don't feel well, go get yourself checked out. When you get older, just go get yourself checked out. And Robert Senseney has always been a class act to me, and I really appreciate his transparency in talking about this topic. We'll have more from him down the road about some of his players from his days in coaching, as well as other topics as well. Robert Senseney, a true football guy and a true good guy to me. Nothing bad will ever come out of my mouth about Robert Senseney. We weren't the best of friends here because I didn't cover his team a whole lot, but anytime I talked to him, he was more than gracious, more than kind, and I consider Coach Senseney to be one of my favorite people to talk to because I know he'll talk, I know he'll give substance, and I know he'll give honesty. And I don't know what more you can ask for out of a person than honesty and substance, and they're there. Glad Robert Senseney is here, and the Sports Buffet is going to be here too. This has been Bob Alvis.